is Pull Request, live from the heart of Brooklyn. Pull Request is an hour-long podcast about everything in and relating to technology. Starring three techno experts. Eric Newman, hi. Chris Grabowski.
Hello.
And Tyler Dinner.
Hey there.
This week's episode, Mighty Mobile Development. Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another Pull Request. My name is Eric Newman, and to the left of me is the wonderful, the sexy, the talented Chris Grabowski. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well today.
You're doing well today? Okay, good. And to your left is Tyler Dinner. Also wonderful, smart, and sexy. How are you, Tyler?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing well, thanks.
Fantastic, fantastic. Nice for you guys to get here. Also, of course, this week is our wonderful studio audience. Okay, sorry, guys. I guess you weren't ready for your cue. Like I was saying, our wonderful studio audience is here. That's right. I keep them in a Tupperware container during the week, and I let them out on Sundays just for us. How are you? And it sounds like they're all doing really well. Well, I guess not, because they heard the news of the horrible attack in London last night. Very rarely do we get to be on top of a news cycle, but it looks like one just started. And that's...
What, Kofefe?
Sorry?
What, Kofefe?
No, there was a terror attack in London. On the London Bridge.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
Last night.
Yeah.
No bueno.
I know, it really, really sucks. But that's all we have to say about that, because it's not about technology. Actually... politicians have not wasted any time in trying to crowbar their agendas into this horrific terror attack. We'll have more on that after this, even though this isn't a political show. There is a technological slice to it. Let's see. I asked you guys how you're doing. Last week was the second half of our two-parter on email, and despite our 3 hours of content for this discussion, we forgot to mention two things that were really popular in the email system of old, and they were Pine and Gopher. Christian, what is Pine?
I actually don't know.
Oh, okay. Pine and Gopher are both, or I should say, I don't, is Pine might just be a vintage mail agent. It was a program that
sounds... Right, because I'm almost positive that's not a protocol.
No, Gopher is a protocol. Pine is a mail client.
Yeah,
and it was created
Gopher,
by the Okay, well then I should have asked what that was. You can use Pine to read your Gopher mail. What is Gopher, Christian?
Gopher's one of like the earlier TCP-based email protocols.
Okay.
But Ultimate, yeah.
Was it more
and
like
what
internet?
was novel about it?
Well, it got replaced by HTTP really for email clients, but it was kind of like the idea of having your email in your web browser was something that Gopher was working towards.
Someone put email in my web browser. Well, someone put web browsers in my email. Okay. Yes, there were a few things that led to the decline of Gopher. Other than just more technology. One of it was that the University of Minnesota, which I believe is where it started charging for Gopher email. Started charging for licensing fees for the use of its implementation of the Gopher server. As a consequence, some users were concerned that a licensing fee would also be charged for independent implementations. So that made people want to step away from it. Gopher's client functionality was quickly duplicated by early web browsers such as Mosaic. And Gopher had a more rigid structure compared to the free-form HTML of the web. And, anything else to add to that, Christian?
Nothing particular, really.
All right.
I have a question.
What's
Christian,
that, Tyler?
Was the use of Gopher, in my mind, I feel like it was more like intranet than internet. It seemed to be...
Well, I mean,
like
mail
big
was...
societies and affiliations and...
Well,
mail
back
itself
when it was
more
around,
intranet.
mail itself... Yep, yeah.
What about that?
Back in the day.
Back in the day, I lost it, sorry. Back in the day, email was really just intranet-based. The idea of sending a message was really only to someone else on the same server, and that's what these early email protocols and programs would do. And then instead of having a server on your local network, it becomes a server on an external network, and then that's internet mail.
Sure. The concept of email goes back so far. I think one of the biggest mind-blowing things in my life was when I read Ender's Game, and they're talking about emails and message boards, and I keep flipping back to, hey, when is this book written? And it's 1986 or something like that, and they knew well ahead of time that was how people were going to communicate in the future.
That's right, and our studio audience was just interjecting. What were you saying, Christian?
I think by 86 you at least had these like certain... I know message boards were actually pretty popular. You had to dial in or something.
Well, yeah, no, they had dial-in email. I think all of those services like Prodigy and CompuServe were around, but they
were calling it email?
Sorry?
They were calling it email in the 80s?
Hold on, but the federation of email hadn't happened yet. So you could send a message to someone else on CompuServe or Prodigy, but you couldn't send a message to someone else on another service.
Ah.
Yeah.
Which goes all the way back to the same kind of intranet mail system.
I'm pretty sure right up until shortly after AOL 1.0, that was the thing, you had to be on this service to email other people.
Exactly, and then for a while when text messages came out, you had to be on the same carrier in order to receive a text message. Those weren't federated until later. Was
it? I thought it was that you just paid like a ridiculous amount.
No, that too. But you also the text messages, because they were different frequencies, they were different bands. They were completely separate systems that had to talk to each other, and that wasn't handled
standardized and all that fun. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you couldn't text someone on a different network? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Remember when phones were only black and white?
I had a few in high school.
Really funny. A lot of our, so much of our world today comes from these commercials that AT&T made. I don't know if you had heard of them. They were called You Will, made in the early to mid-90s, 1993 to 1994. They were these futuristic commercials that were talking about things that seemed completely crazy for the time, like sending a fax on the beach. You heard these commercials?
No. Well,
I've got one handy.
Were these were like the AT&T back when like Bell Labs was associated with them, right?
Yeah. The good old
so
days.
all the technology that we use today that we kind of take for granted was created by Well, now it's looking like it's going to be Google. So Google's probably going to be
let's
like
strap
an old Bell
on
Labs
the time capsule goggles. That does not make sense. Let's put on the time capsule goggles,
the crystals,
and take a look at what the future was 23 years ago.
Have you ever borrowed a book from thousands of miles away? Across the country.
Gesture ahead. Take next.
Without stopping for directions.
101.
Or sent someone a fax. From the beach. You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
Okay.
They haven't updated the GPS voice in 20 years.
Was that David Duchovny doing the voiceovers?
I thought it was Morgan Freeman or Jeff Bridges.
I think Jeff Bridges. No, I think it's David Duchovny, who was also really big in 1994.
It was the same GPS lady voice.
It was.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's really. Have you ever?
That's all Bell Labs. That GPS voice, by the way.
Have you ever opened a book from 1,000 miles away? Have you ever sent a fax on the beach? We have this thing called the internet. It will change your life.
What does checking out a book mean?
Sorry, what was that, Tyler?
Please
speak up.
Mean?
I can't hear you that well for some reason.
What does checking out a book mean?
Like at a library.
I know. I'm being sarcastic. Like the generation now doesn't even get that concept.
Right.
Moving on.
There's another. There's a second AT&T commercial I'll play later. They have a whole plethora of these. It's really, really funny. But before we get more into that, let's find our GitHub issues of the week. Our first GitHub issue is from React. Thanks, Christian.
Shocker.
It's called. Because I have to do it 5 days a week. Why not add it in on Sundays? No.
Fellows.
It's called Error in Using Immutable Data Structures section of documentation. Do you want to request a feature or report a bug? Report a bug. What is the current behavior? In the optimizing performance section of the docs, there is a subsection called Using Immutable Data Structures. At the end, there is a sentence, quote, in this case, since a new reference is returned when mutating X, can we safely assume that X has changed? The sentence should read, if my assumption is correct, quote, we could safely assume that X has not changed. If the current behavior is a bug, please provide the steps to reproduce. Oh, this is from the template. And it says the document in question is here, and it's in the doc for optimizing performance. What is the expected behavior? That's basically it. Wow, they've reiterated themselves a lot. Okay, let's go back. In this case, since a new reference is returned when mutating X, we can safely assume that X has or has not changed. Christian, as our bouffant of knowledge, what is the correct answer?
This is an English issue, so... okay,
it's an English issue.
Trick question.
Well, okay, why?
This is not my area of expertise.
Oh, English? String parsing in English is not your expertise.
Hanging preposition. Next question.
Okay. Well, it says, in this case, since a new reference is returned when mutating X, so you X is a variable, you change it, you mutate it to something else, then it returns a new reference to X after the mutation occurs. Can we safely assume that X has or hasn't changed?
Well, there should be no assumption that either way if it's the same reference. But
it says a new reference is returned, so it's not the same reference.
This guy needs code examples.
Yes. Yeah, no, this guy's wrong because when you say when mutating X, if you're mutating X, X is then in fact changed.
But if a new reference is returned, why would that need to happen if you're changing it?
If a new reference is returned?
That's what it says. In this case, since a new reference is returned,
the value of X has changed. No matter if you're mutating X, if you mutate something, therefore it's changed.
But then it says, if my assumption is correct, then we can safely assume that X has not changed. So they want to change the document to say, if a new reference is returned when mutating X, we can safely assume that X hasn't changed? What?
The value that X was pointing to has not changed because it's a new value.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's your English.
X now points to Y.
There's the English, right. So it's if the value that X... It's the value of X, not X.
This guy is wrong. He's thinking because say you're passing in an object, it's going to be a new object, and X is the reference to that object, not the object itself.
Okay.
So the where X was pointing to has then changed.
Very good.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to our next GitHub issue of the week. The second issue also comes to us from React, and it's
React.
Different React. It's a React PHP?
Yeah.
Oh my god, kill me now.
Guess what it is. Read the README before you read the issue.
How did I not know this existed? I do React and I do PHP, and I didn't know that there was and I'm sure this is not the same thing at all. No.
Not at all.
Event-driven non-blocking I/O with PHP. Isn't that like libuv, but for PHP?
Yep.
Why didn't they just call it that? Anyway, let's see. Okay, RFC support PHP 7 Plus only. With the PHP 5, oh my god, it is coming up soon. The PHP 5.6 end of life. Oh no! I've been running PHP 5.6 on my CentOS 4 servers for 12 years now, and it's all the whole stack's becoming end of life. Next, they're gonna end of life Apache 1.4.
Hey, I can be remote. You're really broadcasting that those security issues there, aren't you?
Did I build a website for you before? It's gonna break now.
I prefer to call those remote procedure calls. Anyway,
remote procedure calls are purposely made.
I know. That's a callback to the joke we talked about last week.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Thanks,
with
studio.
the PHP 5.6 end of life coming up soon, and all our 1.0 releases working from PHP 5.3, even though we strongly recommend 7 Plus and upwards, I think it's time to stop dropping support for PHP 5 altogether. This would open up features like the shorthand array notation, like JavaScript, which actually you don't need PHP 7 for that, and the colon class constants. A lot of this stuff actually. Oh, yield. Okay, yield would be nice in 7, and of course all the goodies PHP 7 brought. This guy wants to require PHP 7 support, and the response is it might be nice. Okay, you can say that for any request. It might be nice given the PHP version distribution, there's a typo, to keep 5.6 on the supported list for a while. The mentioned benefits should all be supported, though I've seen some yield features missing. So maybe 5.6, okay. So this is just asking for harsher support. And this actually wasn't too crazy of an issue.
Another trick question.
Just what?
Well, one, I think it's it was an interesting project to show you specifically. But
thanks. No, it is.
It's also like one of those interesting things to see that this is the way the community thinks. Just screw the old version.
Yeah, I mean, we've become a "what have you done for me lately" society. The country that invented democracy and mathematics is selling off islands right now. So
we didn't invent mathematics.
Sorry, I know that was on purpose.
Reaction.
Yeah.
That was on purpose.
Well, I'll have to save this one for later. Okay. We have 5, and this is number 4.
And also, Greece didn't invent mathematics either. Actually,
they didn't invent mathematics.
I don't think even the Egyptians.
No, that comes from
back.
I get a lot. They invented a part of mathematics. And other cultures had different slices of mathematics that they invented.
Exactly.
Well, the concept of zero comes from actually one of the
Indians. I watched the thing on. I watched the history of maths on Netflix too, Christian. Anyway,
I did. Wait, that's a thing.
You did? I'm sorry. Yes, no. The history. Oh, it's a great miniseries. It's called The History of Maths because they're British, and it talks about these major sections of mathematics and how and where they came from, and the cultural significance of the number 0 and the cultural significance of trigonometry. The significance of the number 0 and the significance of trigonometry tie heavily into the Indian culture at the time.
That's cool. I'll have to give that a watch.
Yeah, absolutely. On Netflix, completely free, not a solicited advertisement, though I would like them to pay us, or anybody, really.
Hey, anyway. Similarly, has anyone seen The Map of Physics? It's a YouTube video.
No.
Absolutely excellent, because there's so many aspects of physics. There's quantum physics and classical physics, and there's even other parts of it, and there's parts where they intertwine. So definitely go check that out on YouTube. Great guy. And then he also did a map of mathematics. Not as good as the physics one, but also very good.
Huh. Good to know. Our 4th GitHub issue comes to us from Forge, and the title is "The Performance is Unexpectedly." That's it. Today, I test the TensorFlow TF iOS example with my iPhone according to the introduction in the TF website and source code. I know it uses Apple's Excel. I'm not reading the horrible grammar. I'm trying to auto-tune the grammar live.
TLDR.
Yeah. Because last time Christian stopped me and he was like, "No, I want you to read the error." But I know it uses Apple Accelerate framework. I build the protobuf and TF source code. Okay. And
if it's bad enough, it's worth trying.
TensorFlow source code in my Mac. Then run the iOS example. I record the time with this code. And the time is fast, and there's an example. The time is fast, only 90 milliseconds, and I know that TF's iOS example uses the Google Incept. What? I'm getting lost in this, Christian. The TensorFlow's iOS example uses the Google Inception V1 model.
I posted this because this is like, let's glue a bunch of frameworks together. I thought it was a bit entertaining because of that.
Oh. Okay, well then, if that's what this is, then okay. So I know if then this is the whole thing.
To be fair, it's machine learning.
The TensorFlow's iOS example use the Google Inception V1 model, and I test Apple's example, which uses the Google Inception V3 model. The time is slower. Metal is more slow than the Accelerate framework. I cannot understand. I do not think there is too much different feature that affect performance between Inception 1 and version 3. How to explain it? It's a lot of frameworks.
Yep. Well, it's machine learning, so I don't really blame them. But yeah.
I mean, the thing is that the framework inception, which actually is not to be confused with the framework with the capital called Inception. The framework Inception is, I think, a modern dilemma of software development. Everything is kind of congealing into these Lego blocks, and you just Lego build your way to a website.
I'd say the one area that you don't really see that is systems, and
not yet.
Just also particular companies. Like, you look at anything Google builds, it's all from scratch usually, or using libraries that they manage or they have their own fork of.
Gotcha. Okay, and let's pick up the pace a little bit. Our last GitHub issue of the week is do not use annotation for init containers. This comes from ISTIO. The init containers is now Istio. Okay. The init containers is now graduated to GA, general availability, and it is better to not use annotations but to use the pod spec directly when calling istio-ctl cube-inject. You'll have to explain all of this. What is Istio?
So Istio is a project that just came out, like, very recently. It is kind of like glue on top of a lot of this cloud-native technologies. So, like, Lyft's Envoy proxy software. Kubernetes is a big part to it, and a few other little goodies in there. I think there's one I'm forgetting, but offhand. But it's basically what it is a full platform that by connecting all these things, you could also swap out Kubernetes for something like Mesos, and it's just to manage traffic flow across your entire platform.
So it makes the orchestration things hot swappable?
Well, so it's like sending requests to specific areas in your orchestrated cluster.
Gotcha. Interesting. So why is this an issue?
Just give me a second to go back to the issue.
Do not use annotation for init containers.
So this is going to be kind of interesting to see, just because it's two projects that Istio got a lot of hype all of a sudden, and Kubernetes is actually the most active project on GitHub right now.
Interesting.
And
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
If only you could somehow get residuals from Kubernetes, but you can't because it's open source.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
So,
is that all that you have to say about this one?
Well, where I was going with this is to say that the different paces of development are going to make things like this exact issue be very prevalent, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to this Istio project.
Why?
Because it's just going to be playing catch-up with Kubernetes a lot.
Oh. But, I mean, that's kind of a problem that any new project has, wouldn't you say?
Actually, Kubernetes figured out a really cool way to deal with that with Docker. And that's by creating this...
Istio has to play catch-up to Kubernetes. Kubernetes has to play catch-up to Moby Docker?
Well, now it just has to deal with breaking changes.
Changes, okay.
So what they did is they created a wrapper. I should say a wrapper spec, so it's a different protocol to talk to Docker itself. And so when Kubernetes just actually deals with that protocol, and the shim that talks to ideally containerd, the underlying part of Docker, or any other container runtime, called the CRI, deals with actually talking to Docker, containerd, etc.
Gotcha. Well, that was a nice rundown of this week's GitHub issues. And now, the news. We've got, like I said, there was that horrible terror attack. It has been confirmed there were 3 jihadi knife men that hurt 30 people. 6 of them were killed. This is coming from the Daily Mail, which is not the most reliable news source. But, why would they lie about this? On London Bridge, and I was trying my hardest to come up with a bad London Bridges falling down joke. I don't know if I have. But, like I said, people...
Too soon.
People on both sides... No, listen, you say what you want about that, but people on both sides of the Atlantic are using this as yet another reason why... None of this attack... I don't know what part of this attack involved encryption or involved the internet, but... Theresa May and all these other and Macron and
they're going to argue, and no matter what attack it is, that there is going to be some form of communication that could have been intercepted over the internet.
But okay, could have been intercepted over the internet. The amount of performatives that these people want to throw out makes it nigh impossible for it to actually happen in real life. But before we get to that, let's hear it. Well, I guess let's hear the coverage of it from our news department. May Murders the Internet, the sequel. Nobody on presents News to Use. London Bridge, Saturday, June 3rd. Many people were falling down on London Bridge yesterday after a white van plowed through 20 people, with attackers then going on a, quote, stabbing frenzy as described by the Daily Mail. 30 people were hurt, 6 were killed in total. Despite the horror of the attack by 3 jihadi knifemen who were since shot dead by the police, leaders around the world have wasted no time in trying to crowbar their political agendas into this appalling attack. Prime Minister Theresa May, after quickly sending her thoughts and prayers to the victims, got back on her horse of internet regulation. She said, "We cannot allow this ideology a safe space it needs to breathe." Yet that is precisely what the internet and these big companies that provide the internet services provide to these attackers. While forgetting that proper encryption is simply mathematics, these jihadi terrorists may not have used any service provided by major internet companies to carry out their attacks, thereby completely obviating any effects and consequences from forthcoming governmental regulations. And so many Americans are afraid of what happens next. We at least know the world still turns and the truth marches on. That's why this has been News to Use. Brought to you by Pneumonium.
That falling down joke was just a little too soon.
Okay.
It was pretty good, though.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. But
Anyway, the point is that even if they get their way, even if they make encryption illegal, because, as we always like to say, Christian, encryption is encryption when you encrypt
Yes.
Christian. When you
usually you buy me dinner first.
Oh, okay. When you encryption somebody, then you decryption somebody. When you encrypt something, it's what, Christian?
It's the idea of
It's
obfuscating.
mathematics.
Oh, you're looking for the usual. Okay.
Yeah, yes. We got to start. We have to bang this drum every day. Encryption is math. You can't outlaw mathematics. As hard as you may try, because it's math, you can just do it. So, my qualm is this, that even if the EU managed to get their data, snooping stuff, and the UK, the Snoopers Charter is in effect. Theresa May, that's why she's trying to do this. If the UK get what they want, if the FBI and NSA get what they want, and they ruin internet security, it won't stop it won't kill the safe spaces that these jihadi terrorists have. Because they're not going to be using they're not going to be using a service run by these companies. They're not going to be using a service run by Google or Facebook or Microsoft or Apple. They're going to be using a hand-rolled solution. So
they usually use Telegram, it turns out, from the rumors.
Okay, but I bet that now that that's out, they're going to use something else. Telegram isn't owned by Apple or Google or Facebook or Microsoft. Where are they going to go?
No, it's owned by a Russian guy. But
exactly. What's going to happen? What's going to happen when they go to this Russian guy and they go, "Hey, can you show us your stuff?" And he goes, "No." And they're like, "Well, you need to work with us." And they'll talk about how.
So my question, and this is an honest question. I'm not even making fun of the government here, but do they think about their secrets they want to hide? Like, most politicians do, in fact, have mistresses. It's been discovered.
Yes, I mean, and it's also been discovered that a lot of politicians that were against child pornography were found out to be pedophiles. I mean, a lot of politicians that are vehemently against gay marriage were found out to have, a homosexual mister.
It tends to be the most anti-gay ones that do.
Mike Pence, we're looking at you.
Yeah, so
he did go to a Broadway play after all.
Between governmental secrets, which government really is not doing a great job of keeping their secrets. Look at WikiLeaks. Look at all of these look at all these leaks that are coming out. The government needs encryption to prevent this from happening. But government security and financial security are two reasons why we do have end-to-end encryption now, and medical security are three great reasons of many why we continue to need end-to-end encryption. But the big challenge for these people like Theresa May and Emmanuel Macron and people like Maxine Waters said that this attack was because of climate change. I can't even. I'm not going to go on a political rat hole, but they're like I said, politicians crowbarring horrific incidences, crowbarring their political agendas into horrific incidences are more perverse than any stupid pun I could make. So
that's true.
I don't know what happens here, because we talked about Theresa May murdering the internet a couple weeks ago, and now she's using this as another drop in the bucket.
Here's my point on it, or my take, is that as much as they want to monitor everything, you can't stop encryption. As simple as math is involved, you don't even have to involve math so much. You can just change what corresponds to what in the alphabet and make it a secret and pass it along. And
that's been proven to
That's a transposition cipher. It's not that secure.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, well, you could make it more complex, but yeah.
Right. No, by using real encryption, but that's not. No, it's math. And that's it. I mean, they even managed to crack those Enigma machines, and they were the hardest thing. That didn't happen until what, 10 years ago? So,
yeah, they had
anyway.
What's his face, Lannister there tell Doctor Strange to hack the thing.
Right, Doctor Strange. Have
you seen the Turing movie, which is actually a fantastic movie?
Oh no, with the Innovation Game,
Imitation Game.
Imitation Game. Sorry, no, I really, really wanted to see that.
Oh, it's fantastic. I really suggest you see it. It's on Netflix as well as Amazon Prime.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's two things that we've plugged for Netflix. Maybe they could sponsor us. Mm-hmm. Speaking of internet freedom that's being killed, really quickly, I see that you guys added this. FCC Commissioner Ajit Pai is advancing a plan to kill net neutrality, of course, as we know, but let ISPs and like Comcast and Verizon slow down or censor websites or apps, like what the government tries to do. His plan would make the internet slower and more expensive, blah, blah, blah. You've heard this all before. But the idea of having ISPs censor things, I think, is new. And this might be something that a lot of people, for wrong reasons everywhere around, might get behind. I mean, there are people that want Breitbart censored. Should it be censored? No. Is there a lot of disagreeable stuff on there? Yes. Should you read it? That's up to you. I don't know. I could see this getting support from both sides of the aisle.
If only they were just news.
The news, there is no news anyway. The news now is the ticker that you see on the screen below what CNN has.
Yeah. I was at the gym the other day, not to get too political, but I was enjoying I was at the gym, and Fox News was in front of me, and it was right at the time when the president had said, officially pulled out of the climate pact. And Fox News was completely ignoring it and was saying, and was doing a big rundown of all the excuses that Hillary has come up with for the last 6 months.
That's funny on both sides of the coin,
Did Fox say, and this is the first time Trump's ever pulled out of anything? Yeah.
No, but I did hear plenty.
No matter how many times Melania has
pulled out.
I guess they have some. The audience has some sympathy for Melania. I'm sorry, Christian.
Yeah, because she has to take that nasty dick.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say who doesn't have sympathy for her? My God, the poor woman.
The things she sees.
The poor woman.
At least she doesn't have to commute to Washington every day. She gets to stay right here in New York with us.
She's cashing on that one. She's like, I don't even have to see that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, while it's important to call your congressmen and Congress people to prevent Ajit Pai's horrible net neutrality. Ajit Pai? Did I add in an L?
Ajit Pai. Yeah, I don't know where you placed it, but I heard it in the first name.
Ajit Pai? That's how you pronounce it? I've been mispronouncing his name for weeks. while it's horrible, we also need to realize that the government should not be, or private companies should not be allowed to ban websites just because people disagree with what's on it.
Unless it's illegal.
It depends the definition of illegal, because some speech could be deemed illegal, and then the website has to come down.
That's true.
That's where this is going too. Remember that hate speech is very much illegal online in the EU and the UK, and they're trying to make that happen here. But we've got our nice little constitution that's holding up remarkably well during this assault on personal liberties.
I think a good rule to start would be as long as no one's getting hurt and not willing to do so.
Well, no, that's the problem. No, that's the problem. Is people have conflated words with violence, and then they're getting hurt. They're saying that anyway. This is getting too political, but because we're going to we would go into a whole safe space thing where it's some people need safe spaces, but terrorists can't have safe. I got to work on an argument. Let's talk about. Not email. What are we talking about this week? Let's talk about mobile web development. Here's another. I only have two of them. Here's the other You Will commercial from AT&T.
Have you ever paid a toll without slowing down? Bought concert tickets from a cash machine?
Yeah, perfect.
Or tucked your baby in from a phone booth? You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
There we go. I love that. I wonder.
It feels good.
I wonder, like, what they in the recording session, or they like just like an annoyingly high falsetto, just improv over this.
And
if Michael Jackson. Kids, we want Michael Jackson and Prince, but like each one's frequencies placed on top of each other for a higher frequency.
Yes, all those things that they've mentioned in those commercials have happened. Though I buy concert tickets from a cash machine. That's even older. Sorry,
I'm waiting for the toll one.
Do you tuck your baby in from a phone booth?
Have you ever paid a toll without getting out of your car? But.
Well, it said without slowing down.
Oh, without slowing down. Oh, well, that hasn't happened yet. You're right. Easy Pass is still working on it. I mean, you only have to slow down to 40 miles an hour, but that's still slowing. Unless you're not in New York. It's
you can go 60. You can go 60. You just don't.
You can go your full 6 miles an hour on the highway through the toll plaza. Okay. Mobile web development. The first access to the mobile web was commercially offered in Finland at the end of 1996, which was after these AT&T commercials came out. It was on the Nokia 9000 communicator. But what if I were like, in 1996 on the Nokia 9000 communicator phone?
Sounds perfect.
Via the Sonera and the Radio Linha networks. They are Norwegian. This was access to the real internet. The first commercial launch of a mobile-specific web browser-based service. Let's read that again. The first commercial launch of a mobile-specific browser-based web service was in 1999 in Japan, when iMode was launched by NTT Docomo. And it has exploded ever since. And that's the whole talk on mobile web development. So we'll see you next week. No. It's really... I mean, what else do you need to know? You take out your phone, you hit Safari, and it's there. Yeah.
I use Chrome, actually.
Yeah. Chrome actually has a problem with having to refresh web pages. Like if you're actually playing a long-form media file, mobile Chrome has a problem with refreshing web pages. Like there's a radio show that I'm listening to the archives of, and I download these files. They have a audio player, an HTML5 audio player for the audio files, and each file is like 90 minutes. If I start playing it and I lock my phone, it does keep playing, but after like 20 minutes, I go back to Chrome and the whole page refreshes, and I have to start all over again. Not only does it refresh, it logs me out. It has some
kind
kind of
iOS issue.
Oh, well, I guess if you ran the OS made by Google, then their browser might work better.
Yeah.
Yeah, much like the same with Microsoft and Apple.
Vertical integration.
Exactly. Vertical integration is a real thing.
The
It does
conjoined
work really well.
triangles of, what is that?
The tessellating triangles.
No, the conjoined triangles. Is it just conjoined triangles of business?
Oh, I don't know.
Is this a Jewish joke?
No, wow. No, it's Silicon
That means
Valley.
two things.
Oh, Silicon Valley.
Oh,
Action
that's
Jack
pretty
Barker.
obscure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it, though?
I barely remember that reference.
Anyway, the first mobile browser for a PDA was called Pocket Web. It was made for the Apple Newton. No, that was the game that you could play after you launched Pocket Web.
I'm number one in the nation.
Nobody's contesting you, Tyler.
Apple Newton in 1994, followed by the first commercial product, NetHopper, in 96.
That sounds official.
I mean, anything net was really big back then. This so-called microbrowser technologies, which are these really tiny web browsers, such as WAP, which is the Wireless Access Protocol. We'll talk about that in a second. NTT Docomo's iMode platform, which we just mentioned, and OpenWave's HDML, a handheld device markup language platform, fueled the first wave of interest in wireless data services. And there was actually, despite the basically nothing that existed on the mobile web in the late 90s, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of effort, a lot of technology that was invented and scrapped before the mobile web arrived as we know it. And I don't know, it's very interesting. Because, Christian, were you using the mobile web in 1999 in Japan?
In what? Sorry, you cut out.
Oh, I said, were you using the mobile web in 1999 in Japan?
No, it's not.
No. Were you playing Pocket Pool on your Newton in 1994?
No, but I did have a handspring PDA that was actually older than me. It was pretty cool, and I got to play Snake on it. Yeah.
Did that have a web browser?
It did. It didn't have connectivity, though, without... apparently you had to get an extension card with an Ethernet. It was weird. Or a cellular extension card.
For
PDA? So this one had extension cards in the back. And
it's a PDA. Isn't the card like the same size as the device?
Well, you only could have one extension card at a time. The only one I ever had was an MP3 player extension card.
What?
Which held up to 20 minutes of music.
Well, when you say extension card, is it like those old PC cards from the night?
No.
No, okay.
No,
but
not
PC
like that.
MCIA cards, not those. Okay.
They almost look like the original Game Boy game cartridges.
Oh, and you had one that was just a MP3 player, and you could slot it
Play
in.
20 minutes of music.
That's funny. Was there a Game Genie
I had
for your
Stairway to
handspring?
Heaven, Back in Black, and some other songs.
Nice. Well, let's talk about this whole old mobile stack, because it is quite interesting, since they had to transition from a completely analog radio-based system for cellular phones and the voice service for over the cellular phone networks to a completely packetized digital kind of service that emulated what was on the actual internet, so then you could view real websites on your mobile phone at a very, very slow speed. Let's see, we talked about first mobile browser. Hold on really quickly. There was... Oh, before we continue, sorry. If you can look at the screenshots of Pocket Web, I mean, it is very black and white, very text-based, and a lot of these early... I'm actually quite surprised at the layout of Pocket Web, because so many of these old web browsers, not even just on the phone, I mean, even on desktop. In 1996, I was using Hyperterminal to use a text-based web browser before we got AOL. It was, yeah. So Pocket Web actually having real images and somehow text support. I don't know. It's really cool. Right there on the Newton, which also used very rarely, and this was also before Steve Jobs came back. And the box of the Newton used a left-handed hand model. which is why I liked it. Yeah. Let's see. Opera Mini was the first versatile cross-platform mobile web browser. And it still exists.
Oh, I remember Opera Mini.
I mean, Opera Mini is still around. You can probably get it for your iPhone. You don't have an iPhone. For your Android phone.
If you really don't want the internet to work well on your phone, get Opera Mini.
Well, the thing is that Opera Mini Opera was known for having the most esoteric builds of their browser. So if you managed to get one of these Nokia phones that had the text, that you really had text internet, you could download Opera Mini onto it and try to make it work. It didn't really work that well, but it was the best, I think, at the time, and the widest supporting web browser, which is a really big deal back then.
Also ironic now, as it's the worst.
Well, that's because they haven't kept up with it. They haven't properly kept up with the modern web, and modern web browsers have made mobile versions of their desktop clients. I mean, everybody has. There's a mobile Safari, there's a mobile Chrome, there's a mobile Firefox, there's a mobile Opera, but because there's the other three, you don't really have to use Opera.
It's true. If you don't do front-end development, just know that basically any pseudo-modern feature that you want to use on mobile browser will be plagued by Opera Mini not working or supporting it. It's
right.
wild.
The better thing is, and this is not one of those jokes like don't use Windows, which isn't too much of a joke because you shouldn't. But if you can get away with not having to support Opera Mini, that would be nice because of what you just said, Tyler. Their lack of support for really modern things means that you may not really be able to get everything that you want working at least somewhat well and looking at least somewhat good in Opera Mini. So if you are stuck on a project that has to use it, you have my condolences.
Yeah, exactly.
Opera also has this extreme data saving mode where they proxy your requests to another server for some reason. It says the functionality of Opera Mini Extreme Data Savings Mode is somewhat different from that of a conventional web browser, with the amount of data which has to be transferred much reduced, but with some loss to functionality. Well, okay. That's the whole thing. Yeah, we can save you a lot of... We can make the performance a lot quicker, but you can't do anything.
Oh, Chrome
Chrome
has a very similar idea on data saver for Chrome.
Well, here,
It'll,
really quickly.
It proxies you the website to a newer server first.
Right. Okay. So that's what this. They probably ripped it off of Opera. Opera Mini fetches all content through a proxy server, reformats the web pages into a format more suitable for small screens. Good luck making your stuff work properly with that. So not only are the requests rerouted, but the page is reflowed by Opera's engineers. A page is compressed and delivered to the phone in a markup language called OBML. That's Opera Binary Markup Language, which only Opera Mini can interpret. The data compression makes transfer time about 2 to 3 times faster, and the pre-processing improves the display of web pages not designed for small screens.
I actually remember using this back in the pre-Android days, and even the before it was there was that thing to do the redirect once you got the user agent. Be like, oh, let me redirect you to my mobile website instead. This was before that.
It looks like it does support JavaScript, but the JavaScript is processed on the proxy server, not on your device. Mm-hmm. So good luck with that. There's a small screen version of Opera Mini with fewer than 128 pixels. Like I said, despite the lack of things that it can do and the probably horrible rendering it has on mobile, Opera Mini is extremely versatile. It really is. This is what you need to get people from not having internet to at least being on the internet. Then once you're on the internet, you can work on having a better experience.
But don't use it if you can.
In the small screen rendering mode, the page is reformatted into a single vertical column so that it need only be scrolled vertically, which, I mean, okay, that's a lot of mobile web pages. But long list of navigation. But this is also for the time on the internet where everything was in frame sets, like the Space Jam website, which still exists.
That's great.
Long lists and navigation bars were automatically collapsed by a feature known as content folding. A plus sign is displayed next to the collapsed content, like an accordion. Wow.
So they're messing with your stuff, but in a good way.
Yes, and guess who else is messing with your stuff? Google. Google is taking a page out of their book, but we'll have to save that with their advanced mobile pages. But we'll have to save that for next week. Let's see. Opera Mini and its web browsing. There's a nice graphic here of the evolution of mobile web standards. And if you look at that, you can see you have like unstandardized HTML turns into HTML2. There's HTML in 1996. And then there's CHTML, IHTML. I have never used these. The WML, the web markup language we'll talk about in a second. And then it kind of mixes with XHTML. And then out just comes HTML5. It's almost like looking at a map of bank mergers. Where you're like, back in the 70s and 80s, there were all these banks. There were a ton of these small little regional banks dotted around the country. Now there's 5 banks. And you just watch them all kind of consolidate. And, yeah. I don't know. It's really interesting. So let's talk about the Wireless Application Protocol, or WAP. Anything to... Yeah. There's the WAP protocol stack, because we like stacks of things, allowing the interoperability of WAP equipment and software with different network technologies such as GSM and CDMA. So we have these completely different cellular technologies that need some kind of standard to encapsulate their traffic that were also analog voice transmission at the time. So,
this looks like a TCP on top of UDP type thing.
It basically is. You've got your wireless datagram protocol, WDP, or I should change the emphasis, WDP instead of UDP or TCP.
Giggity.
Functions as an adaptation layer that makes every data network look a bit like UDP to the upper layers by providing unreliable transport of data with 2 16-bit port numbers, the origin and destination. All upper layers view WDP as one protocol, but which has several technical realizations on top of other data bearers such as SMS or what is USSD? You suck something D. Yeah. Okay. Only you suck some dick. There you go.
Who else but Quagmire?
On native IP bearers such as GPRS, which was the 2G format, the UMTS Packet Radio Service, or PPP. Remember that, Christian, the point-to-point protocol?
That one is also sexual.
Circuit-switched data connection, WP is in fact exactly UDP. So what this is saying is that WDP is an abstraction from either the old technologies of the radio-based cell network, or if you're using a digital cell network, then it just is UDP. There's WTLS that does the same thing as TLS, but just, wirelessly. WTP, the transaction protocol, provides transaction support like a reliable request and response interface adapted to the wireless world. WTP supports more effectively than TCP the problem of packet loss, which occurs commonly in 2G wireless technologies in most radio conditions, but is misinterpreted by TCP as network congestion. And I would assume that you do need a more heavy-duty packet loss thing when you're transmitting your packets literally over the air. And then WSP, the session protocol, is a compressed version, basically, of HTTP. The protocol suite allows a terminal to transmit requests that have an HTTP or HTTPS equivalent to a WAP gateway. This gateway then translates those requests into plain HTTP.
So you like acronyms?
Yes, I mean, and you weren't there for the first half of the email discussion. That was a lot of acronyms too.
Sounds like you're selling me TV channels.
Yes, you can't watch
or side
TV
effects,
on these.
or side effects to a hair loss drug.
There you go. There you go. There's WAP push, the wireless access protocol push. It allows content to be pushed to the mobile handset with minimum user intervention. Think of that as a push notification, but in 1996. A WAP push is basically a specially encoded message which includes a link to a WAP address. On receiving a message, a WAP-enabled handset will automatically give the option to access the push notification. That's basically all this is. Since this behavior raises security concerns, some handsets handle WAP push messages in the same way as... Oh, I see. I'm sorry. There are two types of push messages, service indication and service loading messages. And some of them handle them the same way. Doesn't matter because nobody really uses this anymore. A re-released version of this WAP, Wireless Access Protocol, was released in 2002. But that was something that nobody noticed because even fewer people, few people were using the mobile web then. But it was an attempt to modernize it because it was a cut-down version of XHTML with end-to-end HTTP, so it doesn't need all of that custom protocol stuff that we just talked about. So,
getting closer.
By 2002, this whole WAP protocol stack was obsolete. And then by 2007, the whole mobile web was obsolete when the iPhone came out.
Thank you,
But
iPhone.
we'll have to talk about the iPhone and stuff next time, because now we're just kicking it in the 90s. Wait, that wasn't a 90s song, was it?
I don't think so.
That was the 2000s song. Anyway, I don't have any 90s music.
In West Philadelphia, born and raised. On the
Actually, I
playground
do
where
have.
spent
Actually,
most
you
of my
know what? I do have some 90s music on here. Okay, that's enough. The WAP had its own image format called WBMP that sounds like a radio station. Coming to you live at WBMP FM.
I just hear
The
BM.
The Bump.
The BM.
We do coke in the bathroom. You're listening to The Bump, WBMP FM. Let's see. There's HDML, the handheld device markup language, like we briefly mentioned before. That became the wireless markup language, WML. Now, I'd like to talk about WML really quickly because it's really weird. I haven't seen that many things that look like HTML or XML, but I guess that WML is a subset of XML, but that have these non-standard doc types and other markup languages. WML is a subset of XML, and it has the XML doc type and header at the top, and it has the metaphor or usage paradigm, however you want to call it, of WML is with decks and cards, and you have cards in a deck, and the page is known as a deck, and the screen on the page is known as a card. Data in the deck is structured into one or more cards or pages, each of which represents a single interaction with the user. WML decks
I wonder why this didn't stick, because this seems like something that so many mobile websites
Well, no, what's really
do.
funny is that this pattern has been adapted. The pattern has been adapted into modern web design, but the literal syntax is not. But, I mean, this is just XML anyway, so the literal syntax is still basically XML. But it says, WML decks are stored on an ordinary web server configured to handle serve the MIME type. We talked about MIME types 2 weeks ago. Text/VND vendor .wap.wml. That's the MIME type for that. The WML cards, when requested by a device, are accessed by a bridge, that's the WAP gateway we mentioned, which sits between mobile devices and the World Wide Web, passing pages from one another much like a proxy. The gateways send the WML pages on in a form suitable for mobile device reception as a binary XML, which is just what a binary representation of XML. That's got to be fat. And not the 90s PHAT. I mean, it's bloated. Interesting.
Nah,
I don't know why. Why
it's
would you do
smaller
that?
than text. It would actually be smaller than text.
Binary
You strip all the
XML?
encoding. Yeah, you strip all the encoding information.
I thought it was XML that wrapped binary data, not binary encoded XML or something like that.
I don't know. I'm imagining it being something that you, in a sense, compile.
It was developed at the WAP forum, and since 2002, blah, 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 maintained. Usage includes ActiveSync for synchronizing device settings, address book, calendar, notes, and mail. SyncML for transmitting address book and calendar data.
Like, sounds to me like protobuf, the binary XML.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a binary representation of XML. Yeah, it's like it's like an old school idea of like what protobufs are.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like old school WebAssembly.
No.
not that.
No.
I tried.
She tried. Let's see. Gateway send WML pages on form suitable for device reception, as in WA. Okay. So it transmits the WML content as binary XML. Interesting. This process is not hidden from the phone, so it may access the page in the same way a browser accesses the HTML using a URL. Example.com/foo.wml. Provided that the mobile operator has not specifically locked the phone to prevent access of user-specified URLs, which is a thing. Just like you can lock down a Windows 95 machine to disable the run prompt, but then you won't actually be able to get it back because Windows 95 only has one user.
Yeah.
WML has a scale. I had a problem with that in high school. I created that problem, but that's how I found that out. WML has a scale.
That's at the time I had only one user on my work laptop, and I locked myself out of sudo.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
I had to boot in a live disk and mount the logical the LVM volume, which good luck figuring out that without a wiki.
Oh, they had to get a new computer because this was in 2001, and who sells a Windows 95 disk?
Guys, this computer is now a paperweight.
Basically. We were also playing very many virus-ridden DOS games, which, jeez, that day. I guess I did just turn 30. I didn't think it was... Because it was still this century. I didn't think it was that long ago, but holy crap. WML has a scaled-down set of procedural elements which can be used by the author to control navigation to other cards. And again, then there's an example where there's like a card tag, and then you put your stuff inside of it. It's not too far away from modern web design in terms of coding patterns and representations and metaphors.
Yeah, they were on the money.
Yeah, they were actually much more. They were thinking much more futuristically than people who were making actual web pages at the time, like us.
People tried to put the full internet on the phone and it didn't work, and then went back to this.
I don't think anyone ever tried to put the full internet on the phone because they knew it was impossible then. The only person who was crazy enough to think about it was... No, well, I shouldn't say that. The only person that was crazy enough to properly execute it was Steve Jobs.
I remember...
There were those... like, the Palm Trio had those... what web browser was that? Because there were web browsers before the iPhone, of course, but they were not real... They did not have real layout engines. They all required this WML. They all viewed these mobile web pages... These, really low-quality... mobile web pages. They wouldn't just try to fit your actual desktop page in the mobile window.
Some of them would just strip the text out of the HTML or something like that.
Right, or try to make a text version of your page, which is horrible.
I remember it was a grab bagger. Sometimes it would come in like a full-size web page, and I would have to shrink it down to tiny proportions, and sometimes it would kind of size to my mobile browser. It was totally it was not uniform at all. It was a grab bag of responses.
Right. There was a JavaScript Lite version that was included with WML called WML Script. It's an ECMAScript. It's based on ECMAScript, but it is not exactly JavaScript.
Oh, it probably didn't have the browser built-ins.
Does not have objects or arrays.
Well, back then I don't think it did.
Arrays? Christian?
What? You cut out.
Despite the syntactical similarities, they are two completely different languages. WML script does not have objects or arrays, which JavaScript has.
That's a pain in the ass.
On the other hand, it does allow you to declare and include external functions from other scripts. So it looks like they did
confusing.
import 20 years before JavaScript did. But then they didn't have arrays? Come on, arrays? Come on.
Well, you don't need... No, this actually sounds much closer to what when they were creating JavaScript, what they wanted it to be, because they wanted it to be Scheme, which doesn't have objects or arrays. What you do is you build a linked list that you then can and take that and build that into
but everything is an object in JavaScript.
List. No, but in Lisp or Scheme, where I learned how to do this stuff, which is exactly what they wanted in the browser, is JavaScript with Scheme.
Everything is just like a double linked list.
No, you can build a linked list out of a function.
Oh, out of a function. But then functions are basically objects. Oh, and that's how you...
No, they're not. No. It's the values that they return. It's the value that the function returns that is then the object. But it's not really an object because it doesn't have objects. So it's just this value that you're dealing with where you say, I have this thing that...
Would you consider
you
structures to be objects?
More. I could say that you can use structures in an object-oriented way.
Because you would still have these structures, just not as objects if you have linked lists, right? You still have a structure for the linked list node or the link or the. I guess that's the only one you need in the linked list.
Well, all you have to say is you pass this thing in, and then you have a series of nodes that this function knows to return. Oh, you know what it might be? I think it has tuples. That's the thing that I'm thinking of that you need to do this stuff.
Tuples?
Yes, tuples.
What's that?
Tuple.
It's like a key value, right?
Similar. It can be used as one depending on the language. Generally speaking, it's just a pairing of values. So that way, like in Python, it's just n pairings of values in no particular order or anything like that. Although it is ordered, I should say, but it's just you group them together. Essentially, it's a finite ordered list, but it's just a matter of this tuple has this set size, and you'd have to create a new tuple to get a larger one, and it's also not indexed, but it is ordered.
An n tuple, or tuple, is a sequence or ordered list of n elements where n is non-negative. There is only one zero tuple, an empty sequence, but a 1 tuple is a singleton, a 2 tuple is a double, and so on. Interesting.
Yeah, it's basically...
ordered pairs. So an ordered pair would be a tuple.
Yes. So a tuple is basically an ordered set, is what it comes down to.
Okay. Interesting. I should have known that. Well, that's my TIL for the day. It looks like... the last thing I wanted to talk about, or mention about this vintage mobile web, is .mobi. In the early 2000s, when the mobile web was just kicking off,
there was this musician named Moby, and
and then he started working for Docker, and no, the TLD top level domain .mobi was supposed to be used as a mobile TLD, so you could say, go to my mobile site here, and then all the phones and other things will know that, oh, this is mobile because it's .mobi. Much like people wanted .xxx for porn, which I think would be great, but now it's just every TLD.
Well, it makes searching through your history a lot easier.
No, exactly. No, I mean, seriously, yes. And group policies for firewalls and content policies, it would be so much easier if you just said all the porn has to be on this TLD.
I do remember seeing a few .mobis back in the day, but I think what ended up actually being more popular is the mobile subdomain.
Oh yeah, m dot or mobile dot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now with these URL shorteners, those seem to be the thing. But I mean, real responsive web design is killing mobile sites. And because
you really don't have this anymore.
Right. This was a symptom of you have your desktop web page and you're not going to be able to view it on the phone. It's not even going to be squished. It just isn't going to work. So you should have a .mobi, which is basically text, a couple images. There are sites.
Well, no, it got to the point where it was just a separate website developed for your
yes, yeah, but I mean your mobile site in 1999 was just your
Well, .mobi wasn't around until 2005.
Yeah. Also, what was around in the middle of last decade were these services that would take your website and make it. They still exist, but they were much worse than that. Would take an existing website and try to make a mobile version of it, and it is. I mean, I don't these transmogrifying tools that. I know last week I went on this rant about the write once, deploy many software solutions where they say, oh, if it works well here, it'll work well everywhere. That uses the same kind of principle of crap that these will take your desktop website and turn it into a mobile website will use. Because of
I hate Mobify for that reason.
unless you have a very standard layout, unless you don't make, let's call it, an exciting web page, it'll if you just stay in the lines, you'll be fine. But if you want to create a unique look for yourself or a nice presentation, they really do a nice job of messing it up. And I think that's the best place to leave vintage mobile web development.
Hey,
and next week we can talk about the more modern stuff.
On that subject, interesting little transition here that I saw. Just a sweet demo of.
What's that?
This week, someone showed a demo of a machine learning program that was able to look at like a web page and build an HTML, code it in HTML after seeing a few other examples. Wow. It basically looked at a Bootstrap page and saw the components. It was like, that's a button, and wrote it all raw HTML.
I'm going to be out of a job.
Eric's out of a job.
I had a nice 20-year career in web design.
It did it in Xcode for an iOS layout, and it did it for in HTML. It was pretty wild.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, I didn't think that my job would be able to be automated by a computer because I was using a computer to do it, but it is. It is. Squarespace is already trying to eat my lunch, and they're just one of many now. That was years ago. That they. But like, I knew they were a risk a few years ago when they cropped up. Now they're bigger and better, and there are other do-it-yourself website solutions. Then there's this, which is going to eat those companies because why even make a website when you can just like draw a few boxes and then the computer makes the website for you?
WordPress stole my lunch money.
No, WordPress was my lunch money for a very long time. And now modern web development is eating it, so I've had to transition. And I have the same problem that these coal people do. I didn't think it would happen to me. I didn't think it would happen to me in my 20s, but it is. So I have to realize that if I want to keep having 30s. A career in this industry, I have to keep up with the times, and I have to change with the industry. I can't expect these jobs to come back because I voted for some new guy in charge.
REO Speedwagon would advise that you roll with the changes.
I thought it was rolling with
let the good times roll.
Rolling with the something.
Roll with the changes is a different one.
Rolling away the time.
There's an awesome bit on Roll with the Changes by the Sklar Brothers. There's an awesome bit by the Sklar Brothers from the 90s on Comedy Central in a stand-up special, and they do the world's first straight man's cabaret to Roll with the Changes, and they play air guitar on tennis rackets and just jump around. It's excellent.
That was in 2003, I think, or 2002.
I'm glad someone else has seen it.
Yes, no, and they did the whole. It was right after their Chopper 5 bit, right? Chopper 5, we see a man down in the Hudson River. Chopper 5, we actually see your chopper, and we're on the scene. Yes. And the Sklar brothers, much like us, are now unknown and have a podcast. So, works out really well. One thing that I wanted to end tonight's show on, because I'm trying to end things on a nicer note, or at least a funny note, is a Reddit thread that's titled "Accidentally Destroyed Production Database on First Day of a Job and was told to leave." On top of this, I was told by the CTO that they now need to get legal involved. The question is, how screwed am I? That's the whole title.
It was a great read.
Well, I'm curious, to what degree did he break the database? Because within my first week at my current job, I broke the database, but there was only a single collection I broke.
You are not a junior software developer.
This guy wiped the prod.
No, you know what, though? At my company, it's a rite of passage to break something. Apparently, everybody's broken something.
Good. Well, here, have a look at this sad song.
We also run 35 instances of Mongo, so that's how it broke.
Oh, that's cool.
A large Mongo cluster is 8 servers.
Why not 36?
We didn't need that many.
But that's a power of 2.
Yeah, but no.
Just like 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, 36 is not a power of 2.
It's multiple of 2. It's not a power of 2.
No, it's a power
We're
of 6.
letting you have that one.
Is it 6 squared is 36? Okay. Anyway, today was my first day on the job as a junior software developer, and was my first internship position after university. Today, I screwed up really badly. I was basically given a document detailing how to set up my local development environment, which involves running a small script to create my own personal database instance from some test data. After running the command, I was supposed to copy the database URL password username outputted by the command and configure my dev environment to point to that database. Unfortunately, instead of copying the values outputted by the tool, I, instead, for whatever reason, used the values that the document had. Unfortunately, apparently those values were actually for the production database.
Yeah, that's on whoever made that documentation then.
Yeah, someone's an idiot.
Yeah, why they're documented in the dev setup guide, I have no idea. Then, from my understanding, that the tests add fake data and clear existing data between test runs, which basically cleared all the data from the production database. Honestly, I had no idea what I did, and it wasn't about until 30 or so minutes afterwards that someone finally figured it out and realized what had gone wrong. While what I had done was sinking in, the CTO told me to leave and never come back. He also informed me that apparently legal would need to get involved due to the severity of data loss. I basically offered and pleaded to let me help in some way to redeem myself, and I was told that I, quote, completely effed everything up. So I left. I kept an eye on Slack, and from what I can tell, the backups were not restoring, and it seemed like the entire dev team was on full panic mode. I sent a Slack message to our CTO explaining my screw-up, only to have my Slack account immediately disabled not long after sending the message. I haven't heard from HR or anything, and I'm panicking to high heavens. I just moved across the country for this job. Is there anything that I can even remotely do to redeem myself in this situation? Can I possibly be sued for this? Should I contact HR directly? I am really confused and terrified. Edit. Just to make it even more embarrassing, I just realized that I took the laptop I was issued home with me. I have no idea why I did this at all.
This poor guy. First of all, in contrast, mine was much less severe. It was just
let's not talk about you. Let's talk about this guy.
No, I had to redeem myself there, but come on. But no, this does sound catastrophic, but it is totally on the documentation.
It's on the documentation. Well, what I don't understand is, so it's that they're testing.
Also,
why are they getting? Hold on.
If I had to put my money on it,
wait,
it's Mongo.
Wait.
I would bet anything that it's Mongo.
We're missing the real problem. We're missing the real problem. The real problem is, why do we give junior devs access to a production database at all?
You shouldn't be, but it was because it's in the documentation that they did. But
he shouldn't even be doing something that tests what he's doing in the production database.
Also, if you're getting really behind that DevOps culture movement, it's actually the idea that everybody has access to production and everything should be fixable. It sounds like these guys are in a bit of like a crappy production environment to begin with, and then they're not careful. Their documentation is bad.
Interesting. Oh, I thought you were going to have a third thing.
If their backups aren't working too, then they're obviously screwing something else up.
Yeah, it sounds like this was a recipe for disaster, all the way around.
Yep.
Whoever wrote that document needs to take the brunt of this fault.
Yeah, it does not sound like it's on this guy's. It's not this guy's fault.
But what I don't get is, I'm reading this again. Unfortunately, instead of copying the values output by the tool, I, for whatever reason, used the values that the document had. So the script that they ran created a test database with some local credentials, but he used the credentials that were provided in the documentation, which just happened to actually select the production database with write access. Wow.
Terrible.
That is.
Why would you give him...
Yeah, that's the other thing. How is it that you can have write access to the production database on what's supposed to be pulling data?
I think it's just testing the. I don't know. It's probably just testing his access to the database, but rather than using his account in his local database, he's using the production account in the production database.
Yeah,
dumb all over.
The question is why. I don't know.
Well, so I guess it's a bit more of like the argument is he didn't follow directions. He should have used what was put from the script.
Right, he didn't follow directions, but also why does the documentation have working credentials for the production database?
So it really does come down to like this. I'm surprised. Well, I guess I get why they're bringing in legal, but it really does come down to you have to have a better lawyer in that case.
Yeah, and some of the responses from the decisions made here, the CTO needs to be fired, not you. Another one, your CTO is an idiot. Here's another one. You're certainly not unique. Here's another one. Don't worry. It's not your fault. I'm sure you've already got that message from all the other comments. Been there, done that. It did take me a little longer, a month, and this is you, Christian. I trashed the payroll DB for 5,000 employees.
No.
Oops.
Look, first of all I trashed were about a day's worth of logs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the consensus seems to be the developer is not. It's not. I mean, he did it. He shouldn't have done it. He made a mistake. But it's not really his fault. The fault, I think we could all agree, lies in the people that made the documentation. And the people that included working production credentials in a documentation that could be read by anybody, really.
I feel like for his next job, he should just bring this link up in the interview and be like, I'm that guy.
That's a good interview test. It's a good interview question. Here's a scenario. What's the problem? So
here's the answer. I take the whole production database. Surprise!
Very good. Well, I'd like to say that I think on that bombshell, it's time to end. So I didn't go on my usual 3-hour walk before the show, and I can't get in the right headspace unless I do that.
That's not super time efficient, buddy.
No, it's not. I mean, yesterday I walked to Coney Island.
You needed better time management, man.
Maybe you should try meditation. Actually, I got referral to like a very nice infographic about the benefits of meditation, and it seems like basically everything that
I might have seen the same thing then.
Yeah, a lot of like just focus and efficiency and your ability to concentrate longer and get in the deeper zones and just have less stress, everything that developers need. So if you're a developer out there, maybe look into it. I actually might do it myself this week.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I did it a lot last year for a little bit when I was really trying to get stuff done under the gun. And it made things just so much more manageable just to be able to take like 10 to 15 minutes and just clear your mind.
Right, but I need the energy. I need the amped up. I need the not just.
Oh, you feel amazing afterwards.
Okay.
20-minute jog.
You feel amazing
20-minute
afterwards.
meditation.
It's just like,
all right,
yeah,
I'll give it a shot.
It's like you took a good nap, but you were awake.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to end. So, Christian, do you agree? Do you approve of this week's pull request?
LGTM.
Tyler?
Absolutely.
Well, then let's all hit merge, and we'll see you next week right here on Pull Request. This has been a Pneumonium production. The views and opinions expressed on Pull Request do not necessarily reflect those of Pneumonium, LLC, or its subsidiaries. This week's theme music provided by Volpec. Visit them at vulfpeck.com.